Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as it's going to be considerably cooler than it has been for the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks or so. Temperatures down into the high teens or low 20s, and we're going to be seeing widespread rain. We're not expecting it to be too torrential, but there is the possibility of some heavier pulses of rain at times, but the big thing is it's going to be widespread. All areas are going to see some rainfall at some point throughout the rest of this working week into the weekend. So yeah, if you have enjoyed the dry and warm conditions we've had recently, unfortunately, it's looking likely to have ended for the time being. As we've seen the longer range from the GFS, GEM, Eastern WF and the ensembles, it's going to remain fairly unsettled over the next week or so. Could even get a little bit stormy at times, the low pressure's coming in off the Atlantic, but still a lot of uncertainty positioning with that. But just as cooler weather is now starting to dominate, we're starting to see the first hints of that perhaps changing in around 10 days' time, with some runs today showing the potential for some hot and humid conditions to return once again, perhaps around the 10th or around the 5th to 10th of July point. So we're going to have to keep a very close eye on that, as that could bring back the thunderstorms and the oppressive heat once again. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. To start on the live radar, you can see a typical westerly pattern at the moment, with low pressure centred out to our north and our west. A weather front heading in and giving widespread light to moderate rain for northern regions, with a few heavier pulses, especially over the hills, and some orographic rainfall there. Further southwards, some thick cloud as that weather front is still moving through, but it's much weaker, and a few areas of patchy rain through northwest England and parts of Wales. But it's a widely much cooler day, and as I said, many areas seeing rain in the north. As around 3:30, you can see the temperatures are not particularly warm at all. Best conditions, perhaps across the far southeast of England, maybe 23 or 24, and parts of southern eastern Republic of Ireland there, maybe again 22, 23, 24. But most regions said high teens or low 20s. The warmth and heat isn't too far away. It is, a few hundred miles to our south, and it is just going to be brewing there over the next week or two. And as I said, there is the risk of it heading northwards once again in the near future. But we have to keep, as I said, a very close eye on that. If you go over to the UKV now and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, you can see all the rainfall moving through at the moment continues to dominate through this evening, giving patchy areas of rain. Into tomorrow could be some more rainfall heading into northern regions. Could see a bit of a heavier pulse along there, a bit of a line convection perhaps, but not thinking it's going to be anything too intense. And again, just showers as well. Further south and eastwards, even seeing the risk of some showers and some thicker cloud. As we progress into Thursday, it could be a very unsettled day in places on Thursday. As you can see through early hours of Thursday, you could see another area of quite heavy rain out in the south and the east, really giving some lengthy spells of rain through the morning there in the early hours, and it could be quite heavy in places, some red appearing there. For the rest of Thursday, not too bad, a few showers around once again. And then as we head into Friday, it's going to be a very sort of gloomy day with a lot of rainfall around, most of it light to moderate, with some thick cloud as well. A big warm, humid sector coming in off the Atlantic, not hot and humid like from the south, but warm, muggy, humid Atlantic air, and you can see just lots of light areas of rain and drizzle coming in from that westerly flow as we head into the 1st of July, where it is looking not too bad during the afternoon, but the morning still could be quite miserable out there. And so the reason for that muggy feel is because we've got some quite warm air coming in off the Atlantic, but it's not southerly based, so it isn't particularly hot. It's just got a lot of moisture associated with it, and you can see the dew points are quite high as well, around the 14 or 15 degree mark. If you put the max temperatures, you can see this afternoon maybe peaking at 21 to 23 degrees in the best spots, but mostly high teens, low 20s. As we progress to Wednesday afternoon, once again, could see 23 to 26 perhaps. Across the East Anglia, where we see some drier conditions, and we've got a brief milder sector behind the weather front moving in at the moment, but again, nothing too warm at all really. Through Thursday, again, could be cool down the far east with that thicker cloud and heavier rain clearing, but elsewhere again high teens, low 20s. And then to Friday, we've got a muggy feel ahead of all of that rain moving in. 22 or 23 across the East Anglia, but that will cool down once all that rain moves in. And to the 1st of July, looking like a reasonable start, widely high teens, low 20s once again. So you can see nothing too crazy the next week or so. Nothing too cool, but could be cool in places at times. But nothing particularly warm either. Generally around average for the time of year, with a lot more rainfall than we've had recently. If you look at the GFS now and see what that is showing over the course of the next few weeks, again you've got all the low pressure running in the Atlantic at the moment. That's giving us quite unsettled and potentially muggy conditions at times. As we head towards early next week, this is where we could see a little bit of stormy weather when low pressure really parks itself over the top of us. We have to keep an eye on how intense those lows do get here, not showing anything too crazy. But as we head towards the longer range, look, we actually start pulling up a bit of a southerly wind and perhaps some hotter air as the low pressure sits more out in the Atlantic and high pressure builds towards Scandinavia. You can see how heat builds across Europe and actually pushes towards the UK, the 15-degree isotherm getting in there. Now, it wouldn't be particularly stable air mass. It would be hot at times. It would be quite thundery with low pressure nearby, but it wouldn't be the sort of cooler conditions we're expecting over the next week or so, with that hot air very close by, pretty much at all times here into around that sort of 10th of July period. So once again, you need to keep a very close eye on that, as it could show another big change coming. If you do look at the GM now, again, low pressure running in off the Atlantic and continuing to remain very unsettled over the coming days. Could even again see low pressure develop quite significantly at times there. And as we head toward day 10, once again, low pressure starting to move away, high pressure building towards Scandinavia, and it's encouraging more of a southerly flow. And again, could drop some hot air to our south and the east. If we actually go back to the GFS and just have a look at its temperature deviation, once again, you can see hotter air starting to build just to our south, just skimming the far southeast coastal regions. We'll have to see how far inland that would come, but both runs indicating day 10 and beyond the risk of hotter, humid air returning from the south. Nothing settled, no heat wave conditions really. Would be hot, but there would be thunderstorms and unsettled conditions around with low pressure nearby. If we finish by just looking at the ECMWF, again, low pressure rumbling off the Atlantic over the coming days. As we head into next week, could be a little bit stormy there with some tight isobars and a centre of low moving through in Scotland, and would be quite cool. Right towards day 10, has a similar pattern with high pressure building up towards Scandinavia, low pressure moving away, but the hot air is more to our south than our east, not quite close by to us. Instead, we generally probably be hovering slightly below average with that much warmer air just to our east. So east will have a similar pattern, but doesn't quite pull in that very warm or humid air. If you finish by looking at the ensembles, you can see this pattern quite well. Got a few little bouts of warmer, muggier air through the next few days or so, as we do see some brief warmer air masses behind weather fronts, but generally it's average to below average over the next week to 10 days. But as we head towards, as I said, that 10th of July point, we start to see some of the ensemble members go above average once again, and some go considerably above average, including the operational run getting up towards the mid-teens at 850 HPA, which would give temperatures around that 30-degree mark. So perhaps, again, signs things could change in the longer term. 2 meter temperatures looking likely around the high teens or low 20s over the next week to 10 days. And then longer term, some of those runs returning to the mid-20s or even as high as 30 degrees. So once again, signs that that heat is not going to be too far away and could even be making an appearance in the first third of July. If you do look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Not as much of a signal in the longer term, some warmer runs, but generally slightly above average at times over the next week, but generally average to below average for the foreseeable future. No real signs of anything too warm in the longer term ECMWF, much less bullish on returning that heat to our shore. So we'll have to keep an eye on it, and again, unsettled conditions pretty high as well, with a lot of showers in places, especially further northwards and westwards. Again, we're looking at London here, so it's always going to have lower amounts than elsewhere. So yeah, not looking too great over the next week to 10 days if you do enjoy warm, dry weather, but things are going to be much less oppressive. And of course, if you've got gardens and what for wildlife, rainfall is going to be useful over the next few days. But if you are looking forward to some heats, perhaps another heat wave, some hot air returning, or even if you enjoy seeing the thunderstorms, then perhaps there are some glimpses that something in the longer term could be flipping that back towards something, as I said, hot and humid and thundery towards that 10th of July point. But as I said, we'll have to keep a very close eye on it in the reliable time frame. It's continues to look pretty cool and unsettled for the next week or so. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Make sure you enjoy this cooler weather we do have at the moment. Again, it's not hot, it's not great to go out and do stuff, but it's not particularly oppressive at all. And when we have dry periods, it doesn't feel too bad. So do go out and enjoy it. And I'll see you again for another video soon.